Detroit, if you thought this offseason was already loaded with headlines, buckle up because the Lions just dropped a bomb that reshapes the entire running back market, quietly plugged a hole up front with a name you've probably never heard of, and left every single fan scratching their heads over one of their most important defensive backs vanishing from practice for 2 days straight with absolutely no explanation. This is Detroit Scope, the channel that digs into every angle so you don't have to scroll through 15 different beat reporters to figure out what's actually going on with your football team. We're grinding toward 1,000 subscribers, and every single person watching this video can help us get there. So if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button before we get rolling, because trust me, today's update is a big one. Let's start with the headline that's been dominating every Lions timeline for the past 48 hours, because it is genuinely massive. Jahmyr Gibbs is no longer just Detroit's electrifying, game-breaking running back. As of this week, he is officially the highest-paid running back in the entire history of the National Football League. Let that sink in for a second. Not the highest-paid running back on the Lions. Not the highest-paid running back in this year's free agent class. The highest-paid running back to ever play professional football. Detroit locked Gibbs up on a 3-year extension worth $67.5 million in guaranteed base value, with incentives that can push the total all the way up to $75.75 million, including $51.5 million fully guaranteed. At $22.5 million per year, Gibbs didn't just get paid, he reset the entire running back market for the second time in a single week, leapfrogging the record-breaking deal Atlanta's Bijan Robinson had just signed days earlier. And when you actually look at the numbers Gibbs has put up, it's honestly hard to argue with Detroit's decision. Since being drafted 12th overall back in 2023, Gibbs has racked up over 5,000 yards from scrimmage and 49 total touchdowns through just his first 3 professional seasons. 49 touchdowns through 3 years is not just impressive. It is the most in NFL history for any player at that stage of their career, surpassing a mark that used to belong to a certain legendary Lions running back named Barry Sanders. Let that one marinate for a second, too. Gibbs has already outproduced Barry Sanders' pace, and he's a Pro Bowler in every single one of his 3 seasons so far. Now, here's the part that made this whole situation genuinely tense for a while. This deal did not come together quietly or quickly. Gibbs' extension talks dragged deep into training camp, and while he stuck around the building and sat in on team meetings, he wasn't practicing in what basically turned into a hold-in rather than a full holdout. Dan Campbell publicly pointed to a minor back issue as part of the reason Gibbs wasn't on the field, and to be fair, that's probably at least partly true. But let's not pretend everybody watching didn't understand exactly what was really going on behind the scenes. When you're about to become one of the most valuable offensive weapons in football, you protect yourself until the ink is dry, and nobody should blame him one bit for that. The breakthrough finally came when the numbers lined up with what Gibbs and his camp were looking for, and once Detroit made him RB1 in terms of average annual salary, the deal got done fast. Gibbs was actually spotted in full uniform, participating in limited fashion before the ink was even fully dry, working through drills on the side field with a trainer, clearly eager to get back to football business as usual. And now that the contract situation is resolved through the 2030 season, Detroit fully expects him to be the unquestioned centerpiece of this offense, especially with David Montgomery now in Houston and Isaiah Pacheco brought in purely as a complementary piece rather than anything resembling a real timeshare. If you were worried this hold-in situation was going to linger and create real friction, you can officially exhale, Lions fans. Sonic has cashed in, and he's going to be wearing Honolulu blue for a long, long time. All right, let's pivot to a move that flew way more under the radar, but still matters if you're paying close attention to depth on this roster, because the Lions also went out and signed veteran defensive tackle Ben Still. Now, on paper, this isn't a flashy signing, and I want to be upfront about that. Still is 28 years old, a former undrafted free agent out of Nebraska who has bounced around the league for the better part of 4 seasons, cycling through the Dolphins, Browns, Cardinals, Buccaneers, and most recently a practice squad stint with the Falcons. His career numbers are modest: 18 career game appearances, 1 start, and a couple of sacks. But here's why this move actually makes a lot of sense if you dig one layer deeper. This signing comes at a moment when Detroit's interior defensive line has taken a couple of real hits in camp. Mekhi Wingo left practice with a groin injury that's still being evaluated, and Tyler Lacey has also dealt with his own absence, adding real uncertainty to a defensive tackle room that already lost proven veterans Roy Lopez and DJ Reader in free agency this offseason. Detroit is banking heavily on Alam McNeil and Tyleik Williams to handle a big workload up front, but adding a body like Still, who has real NFL snaps and a built-in relationship with defensive line coach Casey Rogers from their time together in Tampa Bay, gives his coaching staff someone who understands the pace and physicality of the league without needing to be brought along slowly. He's not walking into a starting job. He's competing with names like Levi Onwuzurike and rookie Skylar Gilhoward for a rotational role. But when the injuries start piling up like they have for Detroit up front, that kind of experienced depth stops being a luxury and starts being a necessity. Now here's a name I genuinely cannot stop talking about. And if you're not paying attention to him yet, you need to start immediately. Ahmed Hassanein. This is a 23-year-old pass rusher who was moved into what Detroit's defense calls the big end role, which is a little different from your classic speed rushing edge position. It's more about being a stout, physical presence who can hold the point of attack against the run while still bringing legitimate pressure off the edge. And by every single account coming out of Allen Park, Hassanein is absolutely thriving in that assignment. He's already logged a healthy dose of second-team reps in camp and has even earned real first-team snaps, which for a young player at this stage of camp is a genuinely meaningful signal. Hassanein arrives at this role with real production behind him too, having racked up 22 total sacks and 33 tackles for loss combined across his final 2 seasons as a full-time starter at Boise State. His path here hasn't been a straight line either. He got hurt during training camp last year and was actually released with an injury settlement, but Detroit brought him back mid-season, and he spent the second half of the year developing on the practice squad. That runway is clearly paying off now, because reports describe him as a young player equipped with a relentless motor and elite instincts, 2 traits that Dan Campbell simply cannot get enough of. And look, the personality behind this kid only makes the story better. There's a great little detail floating around about Hassanein telling Dan Campbell he loved him during one of his very first practices as a rookie, catching the coach completely off guard. Campbell brushed it off in the moment, but fast forward to now, and it sounds like Campbell has started saying it right back to him. That's the kind of relationship you build when a young player is doing everything right, showing up, working, and backing it up on the practice field. If Hassanein keeps stacking days like this through the rest of camp, he's putting himself in serious position to make this 53-man roster and become one of the feel-good breakout stories of the entire Lions offseason. Speaking of players who trigger that same kind of excitement, we have to talk about Jameson Williams because everything coming out of camp suggests he's picking up right where last season left off. Remember the context here. Detroit traded up significantly in the draft to get this guy, fully understanding he wasn't going to contribute much as a rookie. They didn't care. They saw a talent worth mortgaging draft capital for, and they were right to believe in him. Sure, there was a rocky stretch with a gambling policy suspension that had fans legitimately questioning whether he'd ever put it all together. But the tape from recent seasons has answered that question emphatically, and everything out of camp says the explosiveness and the confidence are both fully there. And let's be honest, part of what makes Jameson Williams must-watch television isn't just the speed, it's the personality. Give this guy a 12-yard catch, and you're getting a little shimmy and a ball drop. No big deal. But give him anything over 15 yards, and you genuinely never know what's coming next. There's a real, half-serious prediction floating around Lions fan circles that at some point this season, some overly trigger-happy referee is finally going to flag one of his celebrations. And honestly, would anybody even be that surprised? That's just who Jameson Williams is at this point, and Lions fans have fully made peace with it, because when he's cooking, he's must-see TV every single Sunday. Now, let's shift gears to the update that has been generating the most buzz and, frankly, the most confusion around the entire fan base right now, because cornerback DJ Reed has now missed back-to-back training camp practices, and as of this recording, nobody has offered any real explanation why. Reed was reportedly spotted leaving the practice field in street clothes, which naturally sends fans straight into speculation mode. But here's the important context. Without a full media session from Dan Campbell to clarify things, it genuinely remains unclear whether this is an undisclosed minor injury, a maintenance day for a veteran the team wants to protect through a long camp, or something else entirely. And look, Reed isn't the only name missing time here. Running back Isaiah Pacheco and quarterback Teddy Bridgewater have also sat out in back-to-back sessions for their own undisclosed reasons, alongside guard Juice Scruggs and a handful of others. This is genuinely worth watching closely, because Reed isn't just any cornerback on this roster. He's the unquestioned CB1 heading into the season, especially with Terrion Arnold no longer part of this defense. Last season, Reed's first year in Detroit didn't exactly go according to plan. After signing a 3-year, $48 million deal to become the Lions' top cornerback, a grade 3 hamstring injury derailed things early, forcing him to miss 6 games, and he was clearly playing through lingering effects even after returning. This offseason, though, Reed has been telling anyone who will listen that his explosiveness is fully back, and there was real optimism heading into camp that he was primed for a genuine bounce-back year as this defense's clear-cut number 1 option in the secondary. So an absence like this, even an unexplained one, is exactly the kind of thing Lions fans are going to be watching nervously until Dan Campbell actually addresses it directly. In his absence, it's been primarily Rock Ya-Sin and Nick Whiteside soaking up those starting cornerback reps, with Ennis Rakestraw getting a heavy workload at nickel. Those guys are talented depth pieces, but make no mistake, this defense wants and needs its CB1 back on the field as soon as possible. So here's where all of this leaves us heading into the next stretch of camp. Detroit just made an enormous franchise-altering commitment to Jahmyr Gibbs, locking in the engine of this offense for years to come and sending a clear signal that this front office believes they have a legitimate championship-caliber roster worth building around. They quietly beefed up interior defensive line depth with a proven, unspectacular veteran in Ben Still at exactly the moment injuries started piling up in that room. They got a genuine breakout story developing in Ahmed Hassanein, a young pass rusher who's turning heads with both his production and his personality. Jameson Williams looks every bit as dynamic and dangerous as advertised heading into a pivotal season. And hanging over all of that good news is a real, lingering question mark around DJ Reed's mysterious absence, one that this coaching staff is going to need to address sooner rather than later if they want to keep this fan base at ease. This is shaping up to be one of the most fascinating training camps Detroit has had in years, and honestly, we're not even into preseason games yet. That's everything from this stretch of Lions News, Detroit. Drop a comment down below and let us know what you think. Is Gibbs' contract worth every single penny? Do you trust Ahmed Hassanein to make this roster? And what do you think is really going on with DJ Reed? We read every single comment, so don't be shy. And while you're down there, go ahead and hit that like button and smash subscribe so you never miss a single update from Detroit Scope as this season continues to take shape. We are so close to 1,000 subscribers, and every one of you watching right now can help get us there. We'll see you in the next one.